Hello, everyone, and welcome to our next year in the TikTok. Now, I'm sure you guys already know who the subject is based on the thumbnail and the video title, but I don't yet. And we're going to do how I've been choosing the fat acceptance people we cover, and that is the wheel of fat acceptance. So let's spin it. Delete.Repeat. So I'm gonna go look them up on TikTok, and I'll scroll down to about a year ago, I guess. Okay. So it says Delete.Repeat is a Anishinaabe Two-Spirit artist and activist. So I don't know, when I go ahead and scroll down, I don't know how much content she will really give us. It's been forever since I've checked out any of these people, really. And this may very well end up being a bust. But I select these people. These people were added to the wheel because when I was going through my list last year, these people had okay, so yeah, so she's the one that had the doctor skits. Okay. So that's why she was on that wheel. So I'll be right back with starting with one from about a year ago. So funny thing, I just went through her stuff. The 90% of her content is from 2021. I don't really feel the need to go through a year's worth between like 2020 and 2021. That seems a little weird. She has a couple really recent ones, so we'll start with that, and then maybe I'll highlight just two or three of her old ones rather than going through like the whole year, and we'll just do this as a kind of a one and done sort of person. But let's see what her most recent one, so or two. So I don't know. I don't know what her pronouns are or their pronouns are or whatever.
So TikTok clearly knows I just had a major breakup because my entire FYP, I kid you not, is nothing but tarot card readers and psychics with the theme of romance and love and yeah, it's kind of funny. I'm like, I know I follow way more people than psychics and tarot card readers and mediums, but TikTok's pretty sure that's all I need to see right now.
So not related to fat acceptance at all. This was from March 1st. It is the most recent one she has, and if we go one back, it's just a new profile picture.
Mixed
Before that,
indigenous. Of course people are going to say, you don't look indigenous.
this is something about indigenous people.
Why are you?
And then we have a cat video from over 2 years ago. So they just haven't been like super on it. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go and look through and we'll select probably 3 TikToks. Just as this is gonna be uh more of a spotlight video than a year in the TikTok because there's just not there's no year to cover really without going back 2 years ago. So I'll go ahead and I'm like hesitant to do I want to go over these old TikToks or I think I will. I think not all of them, just again 2 or 3. I'll select the first 2 or 3 that I see that are fat acceptance related, and then we'll just kind of call it a video. It's just gonna be kind of a dud. It's just gonna be kind of a dud this time. But at least you guys will know because she was the one that did the skits regarding doctor's visits. So at one point she was like semi-prominent in the fat acceptance community. But anyway, I'll pick the first 2 or 3 I see, and then we'll call it a video.
Hey Alexa, what?
Hi there. You can either respect.
Good afternoon and welcome to Unconventional Pet Collection.
You seem uncomfortable. Does that make you nervous, girl?
So this one was from all the way back in September 9th of 2021. I'm trying to think. I think this was even before I started my channel, wasn't it? And all it said was, fat phobics losing. So actually, I think it started before this. Me living my best life as a fat person. Fat phobics losing their damn minds in the comments. Sorry, not sorry. And it's interesting because this was kind of the stuff that you saw. It's just kind of, I guess there is some interest in looking at these older ones because it was a slightly different time because you don't see this kind of video quite as often. I mean, you do, but you don't. Like, they're not really, fat acceptance isn't really addressing the comments so much anymore, as I noted in my hierarchy of disagreement video. Like, they're just not responding to comments or anything anymore. And hers were turned off, but given that this video is 2 years old, she hasn't really, or 3 years old, and she hasn't been active for a couple of years, I can kind of understand why her comments would be turned off. Like, if you don't want to deal with, no doubt, some backlash she would have gotten, especially with the growing awareness of fat acceptance and the issues with it, stuff like this, I think would get more comments today than it has previously just because people are so aware of it. But the funny thing is that there's always this talk, and this isn't directed. A lot of my commentary for this video isn't necessarily going to be directed specifically at Delete.Repeat, because I have no idea if this is reflective of her current thinking or anything that they're going through. So this is just more generally fat acceptance. Is that they're like, I'm just a fat person living my life, and people are losing their minds over it. But I know for a fact she had a couple of other videos related to fat acceptance, so it's more than just you living your life, and we've heard this with other fat acceptance creators where they say they're just living their lives, but then they actively put out more stuff. Interestingly enough, though, there has been a bigger uptick from at least the older FAs that we used to follow. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some exceptions. Splashmaker still makes plenty of fat acceptance related videos, so does Fat Feb Feminist. But some of the other ones, like Hannah Talks Bodies, barely posts anymore. I mean, when she does post fat acceptance related stuff, but she barely posts anymore. There were a couple of others too, where like I've actually removed from that wheel of fat acceptance. On occasion, I'll spin it just to see who I might get, and I'll do a quick lookup just to make sure that their handle is current, because there are some that change on occasion. But there was one that I look up one or two maybe every couple of weeks, and there was one that I looked at recently. I don't remember the name of it, but I looked it up, and it was not fat acceptance related at all anymore. Maybe at one time they were, but like that it's not in their content at all anymore. And this is something that I've just kind of noticed with fat acceptance is that like those that were really strong and putting out rhetoric a couple of years ago are really backing off. And I can't help but wonder, and it's usually those that are like approaching their 30s or in their 30s that like they're not engaging with that so much anymore. And I wonder if they have had some health issues or if like they maybe have realized that their stance that their previous stance maybe isn't what they agree with now, but there's too much pride there for them to like admit that they've changed their mind or something. I don't know. I don't know. This is just gonna be a little bit of a rambly video from me. Okay, so I'm gonna like not include the sound here because I don't want to deal with copyright. But I can just read the caption since this is just one of those trend videos that rely heavily on the text on the screen. But it said questions I get asked as a queer fat cosplayer. What does queer mean? Okay, so let's see what she has. It means I like the person, not the packaging. Um, I believe that she probably gets what does queer mean, given that a lot of young teens go to like anime conventions and play and gaming conventions and places where they're gonna cosplay. So I could see that. Aren't you too old to play dress up? Answer is hell no. I could see her getting these questions if she's on her way to a convention. Like there are people that just don't know the culture and don't know that, and there are still people with really old school ways of thinking that cosplay is like kid stuff. Um, if you want DRS doctors to, oh yeah, if you want doctors to take you seriously, you should just lose weight. I don't see how this seems shoehorned in, because like I'm sorry, but have you been to an anime convention? Have you been to a gaming convention? There's plenty of like obesity at those conventions, and I don't say that to be derogatory to the people that go. Eileen, I go there too. I danced along on that line of overweight and obese quite for most of my life. I'm still struggling to get down to like a healthy BMI. One, this isn't a question. Two, I don't think that this has anything to do with you being a queer fat cosplayer and the reason why I say that is because if you've been in the anime field or whatever, like it's possible for young teens to not necessarily know what queer means. That is possible. But on the whole, like in the community, you're not going to get questions about your weight unless the person is brand new. Because most cosplay, like it's the same thing where it's like, oh, you don't have the body type to cosplay that character. That has been a long standing debate, and the general consensus that always dwells into it is that it's for fun. This is real life, not an anime cartoon. Mind your own goddamn business. Like that's the general. I mean, at least that was when I was. Granted, it's been like 10 years since I've been in the cosplay scene. It's been 10 years since I've been to an anime convention. I just I don't want to deal with the traffic anymore. Like I got too busy for the traffic, too busy for everything. And going to a convention is exhausting to then go back to work the following week for me. So, like if anything regarding obesity is still a question within the cosplay community, I actually one am a little suspect of that, but two, like where is this? Because it's an anime or gaming and or whatever community. Like there's plenty of obesity, and I don't mean that as like a good thing necessarily, but like it shouldn't be seen as unusual, you know? And her response was everyone deserves caring, compassionate, and competent healthcare at every size. So I think she just shoehorned that in there so she could add this last bit.
Hey, it's been a minute. I kind of.
Am I too old to be here? What? Make a run for shoddy.
Tanya? Tanya? Oh, hi.
Okay, so this is one of her skits. Point of view at orthopedic urgent care for shoulder injury. I've never heard of orthopedic urgent care. Like, where does she live? No, it says healthcare in America. I've never heard of like it's just an urgent care. Urgent care is all encompassing. You go there for like the flu, for sinus infections, ear infections, UTIs, or like general musculoskeletal injuries that depending on the issue they may send you to the ER. Like one time I went to an urgent care thinking that unsure if it was a serious sprain on my arm or if I had broken my arms, and they didn't have an x-ray machine, so they sent me to the emergency room. But I've never heard of like an orthopedic urgent care specifically. Not saying it doesn't exist. I'm just like, have you guys heard of this? Because I've never heard of this.
Come on back with me. I'm so glad you could get me in. My shoulder has been killing me. Go ahead and step on the scale. Let's get your weight. Oh, I don't do weight. We're just going to skip that. You can take any other vitals you'd like. What? We need your weight. Oh, yeah. So I have an eating disorder, and my eating disorder team recommends that. They handle all of that. Do you know how much you weigh? Do you have a rough guess? Nope. do not. That's kind of the point. Well, we need to wait for the doctor in case they prescribe any medication. Listen, if the doctor needs my weight for any medications, that'll be fine. I can do my weight then. Okay. Thank you. Got a shot, no weight needed.
She said it was a steroid shot. The thing that I will say is that if it is an urgent care, and granted, again, orthopedic or urgent care, I don't know if things are different there. I don't know if that's like a part of like a greater healthcare system or if that was a private company. Like there's a couple of different ways that urgent care is set up in the US. Like right now all of the nearby walking clinics are connected to like greater systems of doctors' offices, but there's also been times when an urgent care, this was a couple of years ago, when an urgent care was like its own kind of separate company. I went there a couple of times and they're not, their systems don't communicate with the doctor's offices the same way. So having, and they're, because it tends to be kind of more of a business model than straight healthcare. I mean, it's both, but they kind of have like this certain form to fill out, and depending on their training with the system and stuff, they may not know how to override that. I'm just putting this out there because this was urgent care and not a doctor's office. I just tend to try to give them a little bit more grace because if it, depending on the type of urgent care that it is, they may not have trained their staff in the like in the input system as well as say a doctor's office has. It's just because, and I say this because this was something that even like a nurse that was helping me once when I had it was either pneumonia or a sinus infection at the time. I don't remember which one. Was saying how she was struggling with the system and actually had to call a coworker in to help her. I don't think it's unreasonable that there was this kind of pushback for the weight because they do follow like strict, I have to get XYZ based on what the company expects and that sort of thing. Like it's still a healthcare space, but it's kind of depending on whether it was connected to a bigger system of doctors' offices or it's its own separate company. The employees just have different expectations of like what they're supposed to put in. And if they have not been trained how to override it in the system or whatever, they may just push it so they can do their job. It's not necessarily an attack against you, but that's just my perspective. I don't think that I think it's fine to ask not to hear your weight. Part of my general idea is that you should probably get weighed, but at the same time, I've never had issues like that level of issue around my weight. I've never had an eating disorder. So if you have and you're comfortable sharing, please let me know what you think about this. Please let me know what you think about this TikTok. But anyway, this is going to be a super short video this week because cause I'm taking her off. We're not even calling this a year in the TikTok. This is just going to be called a spotlight video on Delete.Repeat. And then we're just going to move on because there isn't much for me to really cover here. But now I can kind of take this off my checklist. And we'll start with someone different next time we come around to this. Just some quick information on how things are going to work. Since she's pretty much done, we're just going to go straight through and head back to we're gonna head back to maintenance phase, unsolicited, and then the Fab Four Fatties podcast. And we're just gonna go through those real quick, and then I'll loop back around and we will try another year in the TikTok and see how it goes. But that's the plan for this week. So there hasn't been a huge amount of new stuff that I've read this week, but this Hunkies, I probably really fucked up that pronunciation, and for that I apologize. But this is Mesopotamian mythology. The creator did take a little bit of liberty with it. They even admit this within the comic that they've changed a few details here and there, as like it's fairly common in mythological tradition to maybe change a few details here and there in order to tell a more cohesive story. But it's really good so far. As someone who has no Mesopotamian mythology background, it's been really interesting. It's actually piqued my curiosity about Mesopotamian mythology, and it's so hard to find text for it. So I recommend this. If you like mythology, I really recommend this. I think that this is a really interesting starting point, a really interesting introduction to Mesopotamian mythology. It's piqued my curiosity, and I really like it. But also like this is just me talking about my life. But for Duolingo, so right, this is Latin. But I was learning Japanese as part, like, one of my New Year's resolution goals was to get through the Japanese tree. But here's the thing, I'm on section 2, unit 30, right? I've finished section 1. This is section 2, which I've almost completed. But then there was an update recently that added more units. So now section 3 has 91 units, section 4 has 80 units, section 5 has 5 units, and then you have the daily refresh of additional 6 levels. But there were, like, I want to say there were a good additional at least 50 units added, if not more, from what it was at the beginning of the year. I'm not going to get to the end of this tree by the end of this year. It's just not going to happen. But I did want to finish one Duolingo tree this year. So I'm changing it to a much more attainable, much easier the Latin tree, which has 16 units for section 1, which I'm through 14 of them, and only 6 units for section 2, and then the daily refresh 6 levels. So that's what I'm doing right now. I'm pulling a complete cop out and not worrying about finishing the Japanese tree because it's overwhelming. Now, I want to keep working on it this year. I do, especially since there aren't that many units for the Latin level, but I would like to get to the end of a tree just so I can, like, cross that off my checklist. And with the Latin one, because there aren't that many units to it, along with finishing it and maybe working on the Japanese tree a bit more, I also kind of want to get gold with each of these units. And I've only done it for the first 4, but that's eventually what I'd like to. Oops, that's eventually what I would like to do as well, is get to gold on all of the units in the Latin level, in the Latin tree as well, which I think I might be able to do before the end of the year, like finish it and get gold on all the levels. I don't know. At this point, I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants with that New Year's resolution, but like I know myself, and I know I'm not going to be able to get through all of those units in the Japanese tree. I'm just not going to be able to. That's at least a 2-year project, which I'll work on it, but I also want to get to the end of a tree. I just want to be to the end of a language tree in Duolingo right now. So I'm aiming for Latin, and we're going to see if I can finish that. Let me know how your New Year's resolutions are going. Like, my interest was really peaked after we covered Fab Four Fatties. Some of you were talking about it, which I loved hearing. An update on those resolutions, or if you didn't comment on the Fab Four Fatties one, and you're watching this one, I'd love to hear your resolutions for that. But for today, this is it. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of yourselves, and I will see you next time.